Sometimes the light of Christ shines brightest when it bleeds through the cracks of a broken heart. Real people, real stories of hope for the hurting, and triumph over tragedy through faith in Jesus Christ. This is Out of the Grave with Rob and Dave.
Hey, welcome to another exciting episode of Out of the Grave with Rob and Dave. I'm Rob.
I'm Dave.
And, it seems like every episode, Dave, we say we have a special guest. I think it's because, technically they're all special, but this guy, Trey, my son, of course, I've mentioned this before, he's the drummer and co-lyricist for the band Sacred Throne. But we've known Malik for a long time. That'll be an interesting story that'll kind of play out later. But this is Malik Ore. Hey, Malik, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, it's good to be with you guys. Been looking forward to this for a while.
Yeah.
Good to have you.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because it seems like so many people, so many of us walking around, and we have these crazy stories, and so many of us, especially it seems like Christians, we've got this backstory that nobody ever hears. So that's why it's really interesting, and I think needed in a lot of ways for people to hear this, because I think that the experience of pain and heartache and abuse and it's common, and I want people to know that. I never want people to look at any of us and think, oh, they've got it all together or they've had a charmed life or whatever. That's like from everybody that's been on the show, that's the polar opposite of the truth. So yeah. So Malik, if you want to, just tell us what you're comfortable with, and just start at whatever point of the story that you're ready.
Right. So before I start talking about myself, I kind of have to talk a little bit about my background. So I wasn't really raised in much of a Christian background, to say the least. It was kind of like a Easter, Christmas, funeral, weddings at best. And if anything more than that, it was probably stretching it, or it was like really, really odd, to say the least. My mother, she was kind of loosely raised Catholic, and then my father, my real father, that is, he grew up in church, and then he had basically drifted away like within his teen years to going into his adulthood. And then by the time that I'd come around, like I said, growing up as a kid, I just never really went to church that much. It was only when I was around with my grandmother, who passed away within the last couple of years, that I would go to church. I would hear about God, Jesus, and everything like that when I was a kid, mostly from her. And because of that, I actually did like going to church, because I felt like, there was, something good about it. And I even said the sinner's prayer, like when I was around 7 years old, saying, that I had, believed in Jesus, that he, died for my sins, and that he rose again. And I, wanted to live for him. But due to the fact of, given the background of my parents, because you really don't realize until you're a little bit older, how much of an impact your parents have on you. And especially in terms of faith, how you're going to grow up, if you're still going to continue believing in it, whether if you get older or not. And while I loved my grandparents, but at the same time, not having my parents believe in that, or not really practice it all that much, didn't kind of give me that push to try to practice out my faith. And my childhood also, on account of that, it was kind of hard for me to accept the Christian faith, or have it of any importance in my life, because up to that point, my parents' marriage had fell apart in a very, very, very bad manner. My father was a rabid alcoholic. I mean, some of my earliest memories from when I was a kid, it was constantly, he was if he wasn't drinking one thing, it was another, and he'd be drinking in the morning hours all the way throughout the night. And if you're, familiar with alcohol abuse, whenever, passions start to rise up and people start to get angry, bad things start to happen. And there was constant fighting between him and my mom on a physical level and on a verbal level. Some of the memories I have as a kid is him calling her terrible, terrible things that I will not even come close to uttering. And some of that also directed at myself and my other siblings. And
did you know that was, I mean, did you think that was normal, or did you see your other friends and like, wow, this is really bad? I mean, did you know it was bad, or was it?
I mean, I was a young kid, so I had a sense that it was bad, because I felt very unsafe when I was around it. And I felt like as if I was in danger. But at the same time, it was like, I didn't really question, some of my other friends, if they went through the same thing or anything like that. You just, as a kid like that, and you start to be around that thing on a regular basis, you almost kind of accept it as if it's just a part of life.
Right.
So like one time, like just for a little bit of a story, like my dad, well, my father, I should say, he would abuse me. Or like one time I remember is that I came home, I was like in I want to say the 5th grade, and I came home and I'd gotten into just a little bit of trouble at school. It wasn't like a big load of trouble, but I got into a little bit of trouble because I didn't turn in my homework assignment. And when he asked me, he's like, well, why didn't you do your homework? And I told him, because I just said I forgot. And yeah, then he just proceeded to beat me up a little bit, to say the least. And something like that, and that was a minor situation. Now, if it would have been something worse, it would have been even a worse beating, to say the least. Like one time, I think if I remember, my younger brother mouthed out to him, and he threw a coffee cup down the hallway at him, and luckily he missed. But I mean, you could hear a break in the hallway, and so if it would hit my brother, yeah, it wouldn't have been too good, to say the least. So, and because of that, and the other reason my parents divorced too was also because my dad, on top of being an alcoholic and being abusive, he was also a big womanizer. My mom said he had cheated on her, who knows how many times, countless times. And that is really what made her say, I've had enough. But my dad, because he was a very possessive person and thought he basically owned my mother, whenever she decided to leave, he took off with myself and my 3 brothers for almost 4 years. And I didn't see my mom during that entire time. And so it was real rough. It was real rough. I remember, and for some reason as a kid, I had an understanding that this was his fault. And I remember that's when the big feelings of anger and resentment started to gather in towards my father. And honestly, it eventually came to a point where I just hated him because, it's.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you're good.
How old were you during those 4 years that you were away from your mom?
From about the ages of 6 to 10, around in there.
I was going to say, because like if you were a little bit older, then I'm sure you probably would have been like, I need to find some way to get myself and my brothers out of here and get some help from somebody, right. Go and find my mom and, that kind of thing. But yeah, between the ages of 6 to 10, you're not going to know that.
No, I mean,
right.
You're a kid. You just really, I didn't really, all I knew is that my mom wasn't around. And then, and my dad, he would lie to me too. He'd be like, oh, your mom knows where you're at, but she just doesn't come to see you, or made the lie like, oh, she left us, we didn't leave her. But I never really truly believed that. I never could. I knew, like I said, I knew for some reason or another that this was all his fault and that he was in the wrong about all of this. I don't even know why I believed that, but I just knew it somehow.
Did your mom fight during that time to try to get you and your brothers back?
Oh, yeah. Whenever we got reunited a few years back, yeah, she tried multiple times to try and get us back, multiple different times. And yeah, when I was around 10 is when we got reunited. And I tell you what, when you're separated from your mother that long, and my mom and I, we've always been very, very close. Even to this day, I'm going to be 24 come February, and her and I are still, really, really close. I mean, she's been there for me since day one.
Right.
But there's hardly any other better feelings in this world than when you're separated from your mother that long and you finally get to see her again. I had so many questions for. I had just so many things I just wanted to talk to her about, and she had quite a few things she wanted to talk to me about too, especially about what had happened during those 4 years. And that's when I started to begin to learn the truth of everything. And that really, really, really hurt when you start to see the bigger picture than what you were just seeing.
Right. Especially when you realize that, you were lied to. Yeah.
Right.
That makes it hurt worse.
Right. That I was lied to and that I was taken away, from my own, against my own will. And those 4 years, those are 4 years that my mom could have seen me grow up a little more. Those were 4 years that she could have seen me doing all the things I did that year, stuff related with school, just things that a kid does.
Being a dad and a grandpa, I couldn't imagine. 4 years, that's, 6 and 10. My grandson is 9 and I, there's so much growth there. That must have been, I can't imagine what your mom went through.
Oh, man.
Yeah. She had gotten with my now stepdad, and he had 2 kids, my stepsister and my stepbrother. And she said she started to feel a little bit of resentment towards him because he got to see his kids, but she didn't. It was hard for her not to have resentment, she said, is what she told me about during that time period.
Makes sense. Wow. Did your father continue your real father, did he continue the abuse during those 4 years? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So nothing changed. He just,
nothing.
Your mom
wasn't
around. Wow.
No. And, my I don't even know all what happened to my brothers, because some things happened to my brothers that I wasn't around for. And it wasn't until within like the last couple of years when we, because now myself and my brothers were all older, and we've given like complete and full disclosure about everything. But there's only one thing that my brothers just won't tell my mom about. And I don't even know what it is. They looked at my mom and they said, "Mom, we can't tell you everything our father did, because if you did, you would probably kill him." And that's pretty serious. If it's something that serious to where I don't even know about it, and they don't want my mom to know about it, it must be pretty bad, to say the least.
Right.
So age 10, how did it come about that were you guys taken from your dad to go live with your mom at that point? Like, did did it take the 4 years for her to finally win custody of you guys, or?
Well, she got custody of us after she had got us back. So we were at my grandma's, and my grandma said, "Listen, I got all 3 of these boys here right now. You better come over here right now." And she, I live around in like the Joplin, Missouri area, probably about like an hour or so away from Rob. And I was living just across the state line over with my grandmother in Kansas. And where my mom was at and where my grandma was at with Kansas is probably like a 30-minute drive. She said that she sped all the way over there and was there, and it was like 10 minutes because,
wow.
I can't blame her. But
oh yeah,
and that's when we reunited. And then I finished out that school year, and then I moved back in with my mom. And then it was over the next few years, from the last of my childhood years going into my preteen years, when all the custody battles started to happen, and my mom won a full custody of myself and my 2 brothers.
Wow.
Good.
What are your brothers' ages? Older, younger?
So I got an older stepbrother. Like I said, he's about a year and a half older than me. And then I got a brother, younger. His name is Nick. He's 2 years younger than me. And my brother Adam, he's 3 years younger than me.
Okay. So you're the oldest then. Okay.
Yeah. Of the biological siblings. Yeah, I am the oldest. I was the oldest.
So during that 4 years, being the older brother, did you have the strength? Were you able to kind of be there for them, or were you just kind of trapped in your own personal hell? You know what I mean?
I was just kind of trapped in my own personal hell, because I wish I could have helped out my brothers back then. I really could have, but
being so young, yeah,
right. But my brother Nick and my brother Adam, because they were with each other the entirety of the time, and them too, because if there's one thing I could say definitely about life, is that whenever you share pain with someone else that's close to you, you definitely start to create a bond over that, because you're sharing with the same pain. And them too, definitely the reason why they got so close is because they were going through the same exact thing. And as far as they saw it, it was like, man, we're all that we each other have. We might as well stick this thing together and just be there for each other.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. And they did it. They did it. They stuck it out throughout those 4 years, and I'm glad. But those 4 years for all of us, it changed all of us completely. I mean, it still affects me to this day.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Now, let me ask, because I'm asking this because there was a person that was in our family by marriage that actually has passed away now, because he basically drank himself to death. But he was one of those that when he was sober, man, he was the best guy in the world. It was only the drinking that brought out this monster in him. Were the two kind of related with your father, or was he just kind of like not a great guy at all? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was kind of like that. I mean, whenever he was sober, he for the most part, generally, he was pretty good. He still had his tendencies of anger, and his abusive tendencies. But whenever he started drinking, those got amplified.
Right.
Wow.
It's like, take him, like him in his normal state and just start multiplying it per drink, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, after your mom got full custody of you and your brothers, did you still see your dad? Do you still have contact with him, or have you kind of put him out of your life, or do you still have a relationship with your dad?
So whenever the whole custody battle was going on, I mean, honestly, at the time, I just didn't want nothing to do with him. The only reason I would go over and see him is because my mom told me to. If it was completely up to me, I wouldn't have cared. I would have never gone over there and see him. And nowadays, and we'll get into this a little bit later down on the line. But him and I can comfortably say we've definitely reconciled, and I'm able to maintain a relationship to where we kind of just say hi to each other here and there, and that's it. But I wouldn't say it's like a close relationship or anything like that. It's just kind of
right. You guys aren't like buddies and hang out and stuff.
No.
It's more of an acquaintance kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I would say that's about where it's at now. Would I be open to being his friend one day? Absolutely. But I mean, as far as I see, that the ball's kind of in his court at this point. So, but we'll get into all that later.
Right.
Yeah.
So everything that you went through, it just rings a bell with me. I went through pretty much something very similar to that, except my dad was not an alcoholic. He was just naturally a mean, physical, mental, emotionally abusing me. Excuse me, it's the coffee. Yeah, and I don't know. Even to this day, my dad doesn't like me, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. I've never done anything to the man. That's just how he is. He's just a miserable person. But so listening to what you were saying kind of reminded me of some things that I went through. Now, did you go and get did you need therapy or anything like that? Did you get counseling to kind of work these things out? Because I know, like I said, firsthand that is a lot to have to go through, man.
Oh, right. I did a little bit, and I really didn't talk about all that stuff that much because I'm a guy, and I still struggle with this to this day. And thank God for my fiancé because she helps me with this so much. But from the time I was a kid, it's like I just had this tendency, whether because of my father or whether because I was taught it or it just what I naturally did, I don't know. But I had a tendency to just bottle things up, to just just put it away. Nobody needs to hear about this. It's not like it's going to matter. It's not like it's going to change anything.
And then it blows up.
Right. Just shh, basically. A huge lie that I bought into. And I was going to therapy, but it was for different reasons. But I never had therapy specifically over, the issues and the terrible events that I would suffer through when I was a child. more or less how I kind of had to cope with things is that I tried to start finding outings to try to cope with it, to try to find an escape. And one of the ways that actually I started to find an outing or try to find an escape is ironically through music. When I was about 9, I started to play the guitar. And then, it wasn't until about a couple years later, that I discovered, well, actually, no, it was probably about around the same time I discovered metal. I listened to Metallica for the very first time when I was about around 9 or 10. And I was just like, wow, what is this? And then my stepdad, who he's the one who really, really launched me to the metal world. I remember sitting down with him on the couch and him putting on the Cowboys from Hell music video on the TV. And Phil Anselmo is still one of my favorite frontmen to this day. I mean, just his voice alone, but also seeing how he acted on stage. And of course, seeing the whole crowd go crazy. I was just like, wow, what is this? And then of course, Dimebag Darrell, when I seen him play the guitar for the first time, I just couldn't believe that someone could play the guitar like that. Here I am, just this kid, I could barely play, like a little Smoke on the Water riff. And then I see this guy, I'm like, and my dad told me, he's like, listen, if you keep on practicing and if you keep on playing that guitar, I'm telling you, son, you're going to be just as good as this guy is. And that was one of the things that kind of just started driving him. But also, it's funny because, music in and of itself, isn't bad. And neither was, definitely the choice of music that I fell into. I'm still a huge metalhead to this day, obviously. But unfortunately, the direction where I started to go in with it was not a very good idea, because I'd start to fall prey to the idea, surrounding that lifestyle, of like the sex, drugs, and the whole rock and roll idea. By the time I started getting into like my preteens, I had definitely fallen prey to the idea, and that was one of the more bad motivators for me to practice my guitar. I was like, because I struggled with bullying when I was a kid. I got bullied a lot. I was getting to my early preteens. I'd grown out my hair. I was wearing band teachers all the time. Ripped up jeans, and for kids at my school, that was just different. Everybody else, was just kind of dressing normal, if even such a thing exists. But and they look like a guy like me. I'm not a normal guy. I don't cut my hair on the sides, and I don't spike it up or whatever. I'm growing out my hair, and by the time I like completely grown out, it was like down to my chest. So, and then I'm here wearing these t-shirts that have just like these, to them, just strange or weird looking things for them. And then I listened to that screamo music, as they called it, and I was an outcast. I was, and I figured, by playing the guitar, and if I could become, like a big rock star one day, and like, oh, everybody will accept me then. I could get all the women I want. I can, have all the parties I want, and basically I could just feel like, I'm on top of the world.
What's funny is, I think a lot of guys, they get that the rock star dream. I had it. When I was about when I was going to say Rob probably did too. When we were about your age. We're a couple of old guys now, but but yeah, once upon a time, there was oh man, I'm gonna get famous. I'm gonna get all these chicks and blah blah blah, and yeah. But
right. It was.
But, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was honestly just not leading to me good, because just despite all that, and on the outside, I was just a young kid, and everything seemed to be going okay with it, but inside, I was just rotting. I really was. But by this time, also, I developed my own addiction. My dad also, he was a really big pornography addict, and unfortunately I'd come across one of his articles, if you will, when I was a younger kid, and then that just started a whole entire cycle of addiction into that. So not only was I going into like trying to play my guitar, to trying to cope with life, but also I was escaping over to that, and it was to the point where not a day was going by where I wasn't viewing it in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of people, for those who haven't struggled with this kind of addiction or struggle, you don't realize how much it distorts your view of women and until you're fully embedded within that lifestyle. Right. Of course, the way my father viewed women, and of course the way that he treated them wasn't definitely all that much better. But when you're embedded in that lifestyle, you definitely view women, more of as an object more than as people who have feelings and emotions just like you do.
And it's amazing how common it is. I mean, it's unbelievable. I've spoken in different places, and one time I was speaking and the Holy Spirit prompted me. I usually talk about how I was sexually molested whenever I was in kindergarten, but I kind of just heard myself blurt out that, that gave birth to an addiction to pornography. And immediately I regretted it because I was like, man, you're not supposed to talk about that stuff. The old joke is that, you can be a murderer, or you can whatever, you can beat up your grandmama for her check. But you can't talk about pornography. You can't talk about anything like that. And it's like the one thing you're not supposed to talk about. And I think,
and you know what it is, Rob, is because I struggled with the same thing. I did, and it's
a lifelong struggle. You have to fight it every day, just
every
like drugs
day.
Or alcohol, man.
And I was
I'm in my 50s.
I was finally able to defeat it. I just gave it all to the Lord. I said, Lord, please take it away. Take it away. I don't want it. Now, I'm not saying I still don't get tempted. Of course, I still get tempted, but it's what you do when you get tempted. I focus. I'll either, quote scripture in my mind, or I'll say it verbally, or I'll find something else to do, take my mind off of it.
Yeah.
But, you're absolutely right, Rob, because it is one of those things where it's hard to talk about it, and it's hard to tell other people about it, because they'll look at you like, ooh, you're sick. You're sick. You're a pervert. You're a sicko.
They knew how many people in their church, how many men, either had or still do struggle with, I think it would be shocking. I think if we had the guts to say, hey, everybody who has either had an addiction to pornography in the past or still struggles with it today, stand up. Honestly, I'm not kidding. I bet you at least half the men would stand up, but it's the one thing we're not supposed to talk about,
If not more.
Well, right. I was just about to say, if they're being truthful, I guarantee you practically every man in the building would be standing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so we have kind of an interesting past, and I kind of alluded to this a little bit, but Trey and I met Malik at a Brian Head Welch concert in Joplin. And that's where Trey met him. And so you were what, 14, 15?
I was like 13.
About that age? Okay.
I was like 13, yeah.
So had you become a Christian yet by the time
no.
by the time that we met?
No, it was not. It was about later. It was later on that year that I did. And we can go into that here in a second too, if you guys would like, because
absolutely.
Yeah. So I was at a point in my life too, where also, when I was really getting invested with my music, I had this addiction, I was just dead on the inside. And, a little bit about my family, my family, we were not the most fortunate family in the world, but we weren't like dirt poor, but we certainly didn't have money. And I, knew that if I wanted to, to try to, become a rock star and become basically like a big shot that everybody would like, I needed better musical gear than I had. Cause I just had like this little, probably like a $50 or $100 guitar and this like little, like $20 to $30 amp or something. And it was just like the cheapest stuff. I was like, you can't be Eddie Van Halen, and have just like this little tiny, amp that's like this
guitar.
Yeah, and $100 guitar. Yeah. So, honestly, because my family, some of the previous men in my family were involved in this lifestyle, and some of them had served prison time because of it. I was like, okay, you know what? If I want to get, the only way that I knew where I could get money for this kind of stuff, and I know I could get money quick and a lot of money, was honestly to get into the drug trade. And I was starting to, I was real serious about looking into it and everything. And I was getting pretty close to it. But luckily,
were you aware of the dangers, or you were just thinking about, I'm going to get tons of money?
Oh, it was a little bit of both. I was aware of the fact that I could go to jail, that I could spend a lot of time in jail. or that I could possibly even, be killed, or I could become an addict of that which I'm selling myself. I knew all the risks, but honestly, at the time, I kind of just thought that maybe the risks aren't that bad compared, to getting all this stuff, and then getting, the reward. I saw the reward
risk versus reward
greater than the risk. And honestly, I kind of just didn't care. I was just like, because like I said, I was dead inside. When you get to the point when you're just so dead inside, you think your life just doesn't matter anymore. If you think that no one just cares about you, I mean, it's like, well, if this is what life is all about, then what does it matter what I do? If I, go out and I sell drugs and I end up getting killed because, I ripped some guy off, oh, well, it doesn't matter. Right. That's just how life is. That's just how I thought about it.
On the screen. Yeah. That's what I used to think.
Right. And
just a speed bump. That's all it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, earlier as a kid, I actually did like going to church quite a bit. I really did. And a friend of mine, who I was very close with at the time, he invited me to go to church with him. And I was like, and I hadn't been to church in a little bit. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, sure. I'll go to church. I like hearing about God and Jesus. I kind of made me feel, a little bit cool inside, I guess. And it was just something I always liked. And I figured, we just go to church, we can hang out some more, just, call it good. I didn't think nothing different about it. It was just, I figured just be like any other church experience I had. But when I went to this church, there was something different about these people. And it bugged me. It bugged me a lot. It was to the point where, I was like screaming on the inside, okay, I don't know what these people have, but I want whatever it is that they have. And I remember my youth pastor, who was basically like he would become like my first like spiritual father, if you will. I remember his wife looked at me and she just smiled at me. And I'm just like, I gotta admit, I kind of just was kind of taken back by that, because I was just like, what could you possibly be so happy about that you could just smile at somebody that you've never met before, What
is your problem?
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, I was dead. I was just like, I wasn't happy, and these people were happy, and these people seemed to have something about them that I just didn't have, and I wanted to know what it was that they had. But when I heard my first youth pastor, when he was talking about Jesus, because he was talking about Jesus that night, I had heard him talk about Jesus in a way that I had never heard of before. Either that or I just wasn't listening before, because I knew about Jesus, that he had come to die on the cross, that he rose again, and that, if I was to believe in him, that I could go to heaven one day. But I also kind of had this semi-deistic view of Jesus, where basically that he came and did all of that, but whenever he went back to the Father in heaven, he was just like, kind of rubbed his hands like, all right, you guys are on your own now. And that's just kind of how I viewed it. But when I heard my youth pastor talking about, he didn't just come to heal people, who were blind or, who were lame or whatever. He can heal the hurting that's inside of you. And when he told me his story about what he went through and how God delivered him from all of that, and I heard that, I was like, wow. I could not help but be cut to the heart, because knowing what was inside of me, knowing what I had gone through, and hearing that he had gone through similar things that I had, I just could not help but be just absolutely cut to the heart. And so I decided, I was like, okay, I've never heard about Jesus in this way before, but if he can surely do all this, I'm going to give this a shot. Because for me at the time, it was either it's Jesus or it's nothing at all. Because there's got to be something to this. If this is what these people have, and this is the reason why they're so happy and why their lives are just seem to be so awesome, then I want this. So I decided to accept Christ. And if I remember the date, it was like September 14th of 2011 or so. But the big smack in the face that would come, that really just made it very, very clear to me that, okay, this Jesus stuff, as I would have put it at the time, was for real, was when I went to church that following Sunday. Now, like I said, from being around my grandmother, who was a very devout Christian, I would hear, some worship songs and everything. And the worship band was, playing a song that I heard before. And I don't know what it was. Well, actually, I know what it was. It was the Holy Spirit convicting me. But it was during that time that it was another moment where I was just completely cut to the heart. And I remember going up to the church, and there wasn't even an altar call going on. I saw my friend go there, and I had a feeling that because she was praying, I needed to pray too. So I just started praying. And then I remember I probably wept the hardest I'd ever wept in my life. I just became completely undone. I mean, I think also at that moment, I realized, like just like how truly broken I really was, because I'd become blinded to it quite a bit. I didn't realize like how much I had been hurt, and like how much that my spirit had been hurt by all that, and how much I had been grieved. But at the same time, I really believe that God spoke to me at that moment too, as I was just letting it all out. And he was like, listen, I'm sorry about what your father put you through, but I am your father now, and I will never, ever put you through anything like what he went through. And after church was done that day, and after all was said, I knew, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with everything. I'm living for Christ from this day forward, because if he can heal me, of everything, of all of this, then why should I not live for him?
Right.
Why should I not continue to devote my life to him and give him my devotion? And
and for you to go that deep in thought at that age, wow, that's incredible.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because Christ and in his glory and with his light had just completely illumined my darkened heart. Right. When the light of Christ finally shines upon you for the first time, and you see that which with the darkness within you was concealing, for however many years or whatever the length of time was, and you see all for however ugly or what it truly was, I realized all of it, and I asked the Lord to heal it, and a lot of it, he healed, and some of it took a little bit more time than others, but I was able to have healing. And because of that, like I said, I was able to reconcile with my father, because I realized that God could forgive me. I forgave him too. And I had just left, some my old lifestyle behind. Like when I became a Christian, and whenever I started really truly following Christ, I had some friends, that tried, try to start following Christ, but then they just couldn't let go of their old lifestyles, unfortunately. And so I started losing, some friends over my commitment to Christ. I started going to school, telling people about Jesus and what he'd done for me. And I became known as like the religious kid in school. Yeah, because, I'd be carrying around my Bible, and I was willing to talk to people about Jesus, because
that's awesome.
If he did all this for me, why should I not let, him hear, what he can do for them too at the time, and how much he had changed my life. Right. And so now, in the question, like with my music too, I was just like, well, what am I going to do about this music? Because I had given up like my rock star mentality, and I was like, well, what can I do with this? And then when I discovered this amazing thing called Christian metal, I was just like, and partly because of meeting, Rob and his son Trey, who I'm in a Sacred Throne with, which we can talk about Sacred Throne later. But I was just like, okay, so I know about this Christian metal. I started listening ahead more, and then I discovered bands like Impending Doom, War of Ages, Flyleaf, and then For Today, who I love For Today. I still love them to this day, and and that really kind of helped me to give like a solid ground, for being able to be still a Christian, but still be able to be a metalhead too. Right. And even my youth pastor at the time, he was very a big supporter of the Christian metalhead scene, because he also introduced me to some of those bands too, because he liked quite a few of them, and he's that was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. But when I was in high school, and being a Christian and everything, I just said, I was like, okay, I really want to use my talents for the Lord here. I want to, use my guitar playing abilities that I have, and try to, get into a band. And throughout high school and I just tried to try to get something going, and just nothing ever seemed to work out. I'd get with one group of friends, we jam a couple of times, and then those guys were like, oh, okay, then we just never jam again, and kind of repeat itself one after another. And honestly, I just came to a point where I just kind of just gave up on it a little bit. But then over the years, because when I met Rob and Trey, I hadn't seen them for quite a few years. But I had always kept in contact with Trey, just asking, how he was doing, and things like that. But then a few years goes by, And I'd kind of just like all but given up hope about, trying to get a band together. And I just figured I'll just be this rogue guitar player, I guess, just not really going to do anything with it, which kind of sucked at the time. But then Trey gets a hold of me and says, hey, how you doing? I'm like, oh, dude, it's been a while since I heard from you. How you doing? He's like, I'm doing great. Well, listen, I've noticed that you've been posting some of your guitar videos, on Facebook. And I've got this band, and I had, heard about Sacred Throne by this point because I saw Trey post a couple of things here and there with Will. And I was like, yeah, I've heard about you guys before. Yeah, it seems like you guys trying to get something going on. What's up? He's like, well, so, I'm the drummer. And then, a friend of mine named William, he's our bassist, and we got another guitarist at the time, Tyler. But I was like, but listen, man, we really would like to have another guitar player. So what I'm trying to ask you is, would you like to come and audition? And this is what I was waiting for. I was waiting for this for quite a few years. I mean, this is what I was really hoping for. I was like, wow. I was like, yeah, man, I'd love to. And so I came over to Springfield with Trey and Will, and then we jammed a little bit, which was basically just my audition. We just kind of just jammed out with some tunes that we all knew amongst ourselves. And then that was my audition. And then they kind of discussed among themselves, and they're like, yeah, dude, we'd love to have you. And then, the rest is history with Sacred Throne. But one of the reasons I loved, working with Trey and Will is that, it seemed that we'd all just clicked. You can get, for people, who are musically inclined and, especially in the metal, you can get together with some friends, and jam, but sometimes you may not have like the same outlook on like musical direction. And even with Trey and Will at the time, actually, I really didn't care too much for the musical direction, but something about it though, of what we were able to come up with together and make, it seems like it just kind of all just worked in this weird way. It's like we just kind of had something going on. I'm like, wow. And yeah, I definitely didn't regret it at all. And of course, Rob here has, come to quite a few of our shows, to say the least.
I think I've only missed one. Yeah.
So have you since giving your life to Christ, you've had opportunities to, share God's word with people and pray with and for people and things like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's been some people who've, even to this day, cause some people I've been able to pray with, and talk to them about Christ. Some people, it's in a different way. Like I've had people, message me out of the blue, like on Facebook or something like that. And like, hey, listen, I want, like a couple of years ago, I had a guy who actually used to be one of my bullies, funny enough. And he messaged me, he's like, hey, listen, man, I want to say that I apologize for some of the stuff I said, to you when we were kids. But I want to let you know that also I've given my life to Jesus Christ, and then I'm following it now. And I'm just like, wow.
Oh, that's cool.
That's pretty cool.
So, one girl messaged me and she told me, she's like, thank you for the witness that you did for Christ. When we were both in high school, I remember you carrying your Bible around and everything, and just, seeing like how much, just light would come out of you. And, it's little things like that just make me kind of look back at it, smile a bit, and just like, it was worth it. It was worth it.
Awesome.
David, one of the more interesting things that I've seen at one of their Sacred Throne shows is that it was at the Outland Ballroom. You remember when you guys played that gig, and there was this dude that came in, and Trey's like, oh man. I said, what? And he goes, I know that dude. He's a Satan worshiper, and we really weren't sure, if he was going to cause any trouble. I mean, he was walking around, flashing the horns and hail Satan and stuff. After Sacred Throne played, he was actually arm in arm with the lead singer at the time, and I mean, he did not give his life to Jesus, but you talk about a seed planted. That's it's just incredible whenever you basically, you don't try to figure this stuff out. You just give it to the Lord and say, man, use it however you can. And yeah, he really does. It's incredible.
Absolutely. So, Malik, as we wind down here, do you have any, excuse me. Now this is your spot to speak directly to the audience. If there's anything you'd like to share, say words of wisdom, anything like that.
Yeah, maybe
floor is
some
yours,
of
brother.
your story has struck
Yes.
them. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Well, first of all, I think I'd just like to say is that, if you're like me and you're a person who has suffered abuse, especially by the people who you're supposed to trust in and people who you're supposed to love, believe me, I understand that hurt. And I know for a fact that Rob understands the hurt and Dave understands the hurt too. I know what it's like to be awake in the middle of the night and to cry yourself to sleep. I know what it's like to be to just feel like you're alone and that nobody cares, or just feel like that you just have to suffer in silence. And as hard as it is, don't let that silence keep shut your mouth. Reach out, speak out. And I could tell you one thing is that our only hope and our only deliverance, ultimately from all of this pain, is Christ in and of himself. I've been able to be completely free of all of that pain. I still struggle, with some of it to this day, but I can tell you that that you will find freedom in Christ. I can be confident in my answer, even into my dying breath.
Oh, no, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Indeed, brother. Well, Malik, Rob and I thank you so much for taking the time out to be on the show today. It's been a pleasure having you here, and it's been a blessing. And I am pretty confident that your story will reach somebody, and somebody will be listening to this. Oh man, this guy, he went through similar stuff I went through, and even though all these horrible things happened, he was able to give his life to Christ. And if he can do it, I can do it. So guys, it's never too late to give your life to Christ, and it's the greatest thing that you could ever do. And, Jesus just wants a personal relationship with you. He really does. And he loves you more than any person in this world could love you. And, that's what it's all about. He just wants to have a relationship with you. Again, we thank you for being on the show. And guys, be sure to tune in to Out of the Grave with Rob and Dave every Wednesday on the every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central on the GRR gospelrockinradio.com. And if you're unable to tune in, hey, no problem. Rob and I, Rob, he does it more than I do, but he archives our episodes on anchor.fm/outofthegrave. So you can listen to any episode anytime. Make sure you subscribe there. And we're also on Spotify. So make sure you add us to your playlist there. And last but not least, you can watch the video versions of our episodes on YouTube. Just search for Out of the Grave with Rob and Dave. Make sure you subscribe, like the videos, hit the little bell so that you get notified when Rob or myself uploads brand new episodes. So there you have it. All right. And until next time, guys, be blessed and be a blessing to others.